Here is a tooth that had a sealant put on about 5 years ago. And we noticed a little stain in it. And so we were using a micro etcher that just removes the sealant unless I place it on there for a good period of time. The nice thing about a clear sealant is you can see underneath it as opposed to an opaque sealant. Here's a little close-up with the microscope. You can see a little black dot there that makes us a little more suspicious. There's another one. And rather than being very deep at all, the one isn't even through the enamel, while the other one turns out that it is. And we can use a really thin diamond to go in and remove the decay, and then put in a small preventative restorative filling. If there was no decay at all, we could have just replaced it with a clear sealant. As we start removing the little bit of decay on this particular one lesion, you'll notice that it gets a little bit larger, which isn't unusual because once the decay gets past the hard enamel, it gets into the next tooth structure, which is dentin, and that's softer, and the decay spreads a little bit. Now, this is just right when it gets past, and the purpose of the sealant originally was so that someone wouldn't get a cavity. And the sealant did fairly well through the cavity-prone years, and this patient now is in his early 20s, and we're able to go in and make a tiny little filling. In this case, we chose to use a translucent filling because it's not very large. If there's ever any leakage that happens again where the bonding is compromised and something gets up underneath the filling, we will be able to see it quickly, as opposed to waiting for an X-ray. And there's a nice view of having everything completely cleaned out. And we get a little bit closer, and we notice that just a little hint of that white area might be a little decalcification left, and so we go back and smooth that out. Once we're satisfied that we have everything clean and that there's no decay within the tooth, we switch the light on the microscope so that it doesn't set up the material, and we put in our bonding liquid, which conditions the tooth to allow for sealing of the tooth-colored, or in this case, the translucent material. And this is putting in the translucent material. We want to make sure that it goes all the way in, and we'll press it down and use a rounded instrument in a few minutes to make sure it's well adapted. And you can see some of the translucent nature of the filling. And this material works really well for shallow fillings like this. I would recommend it for a larger filling. I typically like to be able to see the difference between the tooth and the filling when it gets to be a larger one. And a translucent filling won't do that. Here's the rounded instrument I was talking about. And we put a light on the filling and it cures it. And we come back now and it was a high intense light, which wasn't videotaped. And we're removing the different aspects of the filling, checking the bite, making sure that everything is nice and clean, and then they're able to chew without touching the translucent material. And now we're polishing up the filling so that it's nice and smooth. And it's blended in really very well, particularly for a lower tooth that is not in the aesthetic zone where someone would naturally be smiling. Use two different types of polishers to get it nice and smooth. And in comparison, there's a sealant right next to it where you can see the darker yellow, which is a clear sealant. And if there was anything that was wrong with it, you'd see through it. And right next to the sealant is a place where the old sealant fell off maybe a year or so ago. And then there's the one we just got done doing. And we'll see behind those two teeth are two molars that had a little bit larger fillings done with the light opaque material. And that's because those teeth didn't have sealants done when he was younger. And so that's the usage of a clear sealant material